to Discograffiti, the deep dive podcast for music obsessives that gives maniacs like you and me the chance to connect with a brotherhood obsessed with rating the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever mattered. I'm your host, Dave Gebroe, and when I was a kid, I thought I loved music. But no, that was only the beginning. I almost lost my life, and in the process, it made music a top priority in a way I'd thought was completely unimaginable. I quit my job, went all in on Discograffiti, and never looked back. And so, with 3 new episodes each week, you're going to gain a comprehensive knowledge of an act's history and output in the time it takes to listen to one album. Each new guest swings a hard left into an area you either had no idea you needed to know about, or know all about and can't believe you're not alone out there. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on love! Along with our special guest, Joe Kennedy. This episode is part of a series called 7 and 7 and 7 is, the definitive 21-episode story of Arthur Lee and Love, which I've consciously crafted to act as the ultimate repository of fact and opinion on one of the greatest bands to ever walk the face of the earth, the almighty Love. It includes 13 episodes heralding the return of Discograffiti host OG Joe Kennedy, 6 episodes from a 4.5-hour interview with OG Love mainstay Johnny Echols, and 2 episodes from a 2.5-hour interview with the members of Baby Lemonade, who've served as Love now for coming up on 35 years. This is part 16, covering a little-known but unbelievably fascinating era during which Arthur was afforded his final substantial opportunity, and what happened with that opportunity in Arthur's dubiously capable hands. Here are just a few of the many things that Joe discusses with Discograffiti in this podcast. Arthur Lee bringing the funk in a big way, the great lost love song, and in many ways the true epilogue to Forever Changes, Arthur's final big chance, what you get if you're Eric Clapton and you've asked Arthur to open for you, that time Robert Plant and Jimmy Page swung by to meet Arthur, that time Arthur lived out of his car, but with a driver, and an in-depth track-by-track deep dive on every song off Black Beauty and Reel to Reel. And away we go then! So moving into the reel-to-reel era, here's Arthur speaking to Stephen Rosen for Rolling Stone in September 1974. So that's my trip, man. Getting as black and funky as I can, man, on my music side. That's what I feel right now. I've been exposed to a lot of different types of music, and there are a lot of things that I can contribute to the so-called music world. I want to do that. I don't want to leave no rock unturned.
The so-called music world.
Yeah.
Despite the negative reviews of his recent albums and the collapse of 2 other projects, incredibly Arthur's luck still hadn't quite run out yet, as can be gleaned from the events of late 1974. Skip Taylor was a veteran band manager who had also produced albums for Can Heat, John Lee Hooker, Harvey Mandel, and The Who's Keith Moon. He met with Arthur and they discussed making a record together.
Skip says, "We had a great meeting. I told them that I was a firm believer in getting involved in the early songwriting, arranging, and rehearsing of the songs for the studio. RSO, which I think when you say RSO, I think of disco in the late 70s.
Right. I think of Bee Gees, the logo on the Bee Gees records, the Grease soundtrack.
So they were founded in 1973 by Robert Stigwood, who managed Eric Clapton and the Bee Gees. It was a custom imprint distributed by Atlantic Records at the time, and RSO had money to burn. Just obscene amounts of the stuff. Skip explains, Eric Clapton was a fan of Arthur's. Bill Oakes, who was running RSO Records, told me that because of Clapton, who was an RSO artist at the time, they were interested in signing Arthur. Clapton put pressure on Robert Stigwood, owner of RSO, to sign Arthur Lee because of Arthur's notoriety in England. The Forever Changes album had been voted the #1 album for 12 years in England. Another guy who talked to Stigwood was Led Zeppelin singer Robert Plant. He idolized Arthur.
Although working with Arthur at this point was a known and very serious risk, RSO proceeded with admirable faith. They offered Arthur a 2-album contract and put up a $100,000 budget for them to make the first record. That's quite a bit of money for a band in those days.
That is quite a bit of money. And not only that, but if you want to contextually just see what was going on, he was being afforded a pittance for the last several years. And what he was doing was taking that pittance and siphoning as much of it as he could right up his nose, or into his veins, and then using as little as possible to make the record. Now he was getting a monster budget, and he wasn't in charge of the budget. This guy Skip was a real producer who was actually able to draw the purse strings. So Reel to Reel was Arthur's final true love album, as far as a record made with a working band rather than as star and sidemen, and it was also by far the most expensive record he ever made.
President of RSO, Bill Oakes, was an Englishman in his early 20s. He had come up in his home country enthralled to the Forever Changes mythology, and he made a fundamental miscalculation when he signed Lee to the label. This gentleman, Bill, says, quote, "I was chasing Arthur because of Forever Changes. That album had been a top 30 hit in Britain. I was banking on Arthur coming back with Alone Again or. That was my romantic idea. I was personally going to bring this guy back. Then, of course, what turned up on my desk after 6 months was totally different."
Now I love this part of the story. And by the way, this whole tale could be a movie in itself. I mean, you could make a movie or write an entire book just about this sequence in Arthur's career. It's that fascinating.
Yeah, just the arc of this project.
Just this project.
Start to finish, yeah.
So Bill Oakes met Arthur for the first time at Skip Taylor's home on Wonderland Avenue in L.A. to seal Love's deal with RSO. Oakes came to the meeting with a briefcase. Inside was a check for $100,000, the advance for Love's first release under the 2-album contract. I like to think of a briefcase that literally just had the check inside, and that's it. In return, Oakes got a surprise. Skip Taylor announced that he was producing Love's new album. Bill says, "That wasn't part of the deal. I was expecting to bring in Tom Dowd, who I was close with, or somebody like that. But Skip said, no, I'm the manager and the producer. It meant that I wasn't involved in the recording. When the first cuts came through, they were not at all what I was expecting." Skip had this whole spiel how this was going to be great, that it was going to bring a whole new audience, and I wanted the old audience. Oakes remembers something else from that handoff at Taylor's house, a key component to the tale that is my single favorite example of Arthur's hustler tendencies. Bill says, "Forever Changes was playing on the stereo. I'm thinking, this is going to be a new dawn." That is, I mean, he is the greatest world-class huckster ever.
Yeah, that's a real good hustle he has going there. You know, you kind of wonder, it makes you, I know everybody loves the album, you know, and it's not that long after, it's only 6-7 years later, but the world is so different. Can you make Forever Changes in 1974? What would that even really be like?
Well,
if you set out to make a record, I mean, obviously we heard the Thomasina and Bushrod song, so he still has the ability to do it.
So the answer is yes, but I mean, the thing is, and you have to keep in mind that in England, it was seen as completely different as it was here because, you know, later on, when we get way past the 60s, it was voted the greatest rock and roll album ever made.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Parliament is saying this, and that's way after this. So to the English, I believe this goes beyond psychedelia and beyond the Summer of Love and becomes more just this inviolable body of music that is just a timeless product, you know?
Yeah, I wonder what the people at RSO, what they had in their head of what it was going to actually be like. I mean, I can imagine it, but I would just wonder how it would have, if he had made his best attempt to make another Forever Changes, I wonder what that would have panned. I mean, he clearly still had the musical chops. I just don't know where it would have sat in the culture at that time.
Well, that's the crazy thing about the Thomasina and Bushrod song coming at the point at which it does, because he is sort of dangling the carrot that he is not only able to, but is going to create the 1975 version of that.
Right.
And clearly has the capability of being able to do so, but just does not. So,
right.
So while Reel to Reel certainly wasn't Forever Changes, it was definitely Arthur's most overt grasp at mainstream acceptance, almost manic in its crowd-pleasing drive.
Yeah, it's definitely going for more fun kind of vibes, right?
Yeah.
That's the one thing that really you can kind of get the sense of is that it is trying to be crowd-pleasing. As Arthur stared at that huge check in his hand, Skip Taylor said, "I remember the look on his face. It was like, holy shit, this is pretty amazing." And I said, Arthur, as far as I know, this is the last big record contract you're going to get. If you blow this, I don't know who's going to be in your corner, but it won't be me. It won't be Robert Stigwood or Eric Clapton. I don't know how many more shots you got. That was a lot of money at that time. And of course, Arthur said to me, let's go make a $10,000 album and you and I can pocket the rest. I said to him, that's not what we're going to do, Arthur. We're going to make a $100,000 album. If it only takes $90,000 in the long run, fine. There's $10,000 left over for you. I don't need a dime out of this. I want to make a good record. They gave me $10,000 up front and I had a 3% deal as a producer, so I was fine. I told Arthur that I wanted to put in the time and energy to make a great album. What I didn't tell Arthur was that I had a major ace in the hole. Stigwood told me that if the timing worked out when we delivered the album, he would put Arthur on Clapton's world tour.
Thank God Arthur didn't get his way just this once at least, because you can hear every cent that was spent on this record right in the grooves of the thing. Now, you ready for an interesting twist in the tale? So, Arthur...
An interesting and utterly predictable twist in the tale.
I mean, I didn't see this particular... I mean, I saw it coming, but I didn't see it coming, kind of thing.
Love got the special guest slot in Clapton's East Coast Arena run in late September and early October 1974.
Skip Taylor explains what happened. Strap yourselves in, folks. Here's what went down. Not only was it his last shot, it was his biggest shot ever. Neither Elektra nor Blue Thumb ever put that kind of money behind Arthur. The first show he did was in England, with me standing in the wings right beside Robert Stigwood and his partner Bill Oakes. Arthur went out to open the show and got a standing ovation from the entire audience. And then he said, all right, that concludes your free sneak peek into today's bonus episode. If you want to hear the rest of it, just visit patreon.com/discograffiti and either purchase this podcast by itself for $4 or better yet, subscribe at the major tier and get access to Discograffiti's 3 weekly episodes. That's Friday's main episode, the Sunday Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. That's our podcast within a podcast featuring Patreon members as guests, and your Tuesday bonus episode. Please keep in mind this is entirely how I support my wife and 7-year-old son, so don't risk feeling badly about yourself by not supporting Discograffiti. Become a member so you don't miss a single thing at patreon.com/discograffiti.